How sex drives evolution.
There are a few traits that have been observed in species that appear to violate Darwinism. These traits, instead of serving as an adaptation, give the individuals a disadvantage with respect to survival or any other day-to-day function. For example, the feathers on a peacock make them more noticeable to predators, or the antlers on the now extinct Irish elk, which require an enormous amount of energy to carry around on their heads in general. So how could these traits that appear to give such a disadvantage be useful in any way for the species? A hint would be that only males of the species were observed to have these trait differences. These differences in traits between males and females are called sexual dimorphisms. From various studies and observations, the most likely purpose for these sexual dimorphisms would have to be to increase the probability of finding or gaining a mate to reproduce with. Darwin coined this term sexual selection, meaning the form of natural selection in which one sex chooses a mate of the other sex, or one sex competes for the right to mate with the other sex. As observed, this would mean that males of these species trade off less survival for the possibility of more reproduction. Sexual selection takes two forms, one being the direct competition between males for the right to mate with the female, or the choice of the female to choose, for the lack of a better term, what they consider the best display. Another result of this selection would be the new realm of competition that extends beyond mating, as some females of species can have more than one mate. This is called post-mating competition, and different forms of this have evolved over time as well. Males may take an offensive or defensive approach to claim the rights of a female. For example, an offensive strategy would be the penis scoop of the damselflies, while a defensive one would be attaching to mates like dragonflies or millipedes, as well as chemical blocks or guards used by snakes or rodents after insemination. Regardless, for these species, there's an incredible amount of energy and effort expended and the risk of predation that males must deal with in order to reproduce. On the other hand, instead of competing for a mate, the idea of female choice is more tricky to deal with or observe. Through countless studies and observations, though, female choice is widely accepted, while not completely understood yet. The evidence from these studies also show an interesting trend within female choice, that they tend to choose with the idea of more in mind, that being possibly more colors or more complexity or more length, and it appears to be consistent. Despite the evolution of these traits, the males still continue to go through a great deal in order to find a mate for them, which brings up another big question. Why do the females get to choose?
Parthenogenesis and sexual reproduction. The purpose of reproduction is to pass on our genes to the next generation. Parthenogenesis is when a female's gamete produces an offspring. This process does not require the egg to be fertilized by a male, and thus all of the mother's genes would be conserved from one generation to the next. In sexual reproduction, both parents only pass on 50% of their genes. So why do most mammals reproduce sexually? Sexual reproduction probably promotes faster evolution to deal with the factors of the environment that are constantly changing by combining genes that are fit and purging those that are not. Sexual selection. Natural selection favors males to produce many smaller gametes and females to produce fewer but larger gametes. Mating for a male is limited only by their ability to attract mates and the viability of their gamete, while females have a limited number of eggs, and once they are pregnant, they are unable to mate for a while. Sexual evolution. Sexual dimorphism is due to differential investment between the sexes. In 90% of mammal species, fathers only invest sperm, while mothers invest their limited and nutrient-rich eggs, invest in pregnancy, and invest in parental care. That's why females must be picky in choosing mates, while males have to compete. This leads to only the males with the best displays getting to mate, but females usually get to reproduce anyways. Monogamy. Monogamous species are rare in the wild, but can be favored by evolution if providing parental care leads to males having more offspring. Sexually monogamous species show little to non-sexual dimorphism. Breaking the rules. We see sexual dimorphism in socially monogamous species. Social mates rear offspring together, but usually don't mate with each other. In most species, males must compete to be picked by females, but in very rare instances, the roles are reversed. In species like seahorses, where males are responsible for parental care, it is the females that evolve to compete with each other to find males to mate with.
Why do females choose? In most species, females are the choosy sex when it comes to selecting a mate. It is evident that females are themselves adaptive when choosing a partner in order to spread their genes. Charles Darwin formulated an idea of that preference cannot be always a matter of random and inborn taste, but it also can be selection. What does a female gain by choosing her partner? A female having a gene that tells her to mate with males with favorable traits will survive better and have a high proportion of producing female offspring who carry the preference gene, and thereby all females in the population will carry the gene eventually from generation to generation. Through various scientific experiments carried out in the past decades, it has been found choice can benefit a female either directly or indirectly. One of the four theories which has been put forward to explain mate choice, which is also known as good parent theory, suggests that choosy individuals select partners on the basis of how well they will care for their offspring. Direct benefits. An undeviating or direct benefit of mate choice that a female receives is the assurance of bearing offspring that will survive and display high general fitness. Besides genetics, fitness of an offspring may depend on food, parental care, a better territory, and protection. Indirect benefits. When it appears that the choosy sex does not receive direct benefits from her mate, indirect benefits may be the payoff for being selective. These indirect benefits may include high-quality genes for their offspring to be fittest or makes the offspring more attractive. As examples, when females mate with males having genes responsible for high body strength, disease resistance, bright colors, loud calls, it will eventually get passed to the generations ahead. On the other hand, because of this choosiness of female party, the competition between males for reproduction may increase, and as a consequence, it will eliminate deleterious genes from the population. Sensory bias model. The sensory bias model of sexual selection posits that female mating preferences are byproducts of natural selection on sensory systems. In this case, females gain neither direct nor indirect benefit from choosing a mate. In this situation, females may prefer newly raised traits of males which they have been never exposed before, or the body size which however stimulate their nervous system. Charles Darwin named this female preference as the taste for the beautiful.